Alrighty, let's see if this works. Yes, here we go. The first day of my media law class each semester, I have 2-3 volunteers looking at the video. And it's a bar fight, a couple people pushing and shoving. Then we have someone on the ground getting stabbed. And before we know, we have the ambulance calling in. The students watch these before class or just outside the classroom, and then they come back, and then the rest of the class is asking questions because it's their job to find out what just happened. And then, after asking a bunch of questions, they get to write the story. Meanwhile, while they're writing the story, they get information on the screen. So I manipulated a Twitter feed and some other social media accounts where they can get more information about the case in case they didn't ask the right questions. As you see, there's also some false accounts, because I can tell you in Muncie, Indiana, Paris Hilton will never dine. And by the way, this happened in the Fickle Peach, which is an existing restaurant in Muncie, yet it did not really happen there. So just be careful with your tweets like, oh my God, never want to eat at the Fickle Peach. It's false. Every minute or so, there will be new tweets on the screen. And sometimes they get voicemails. So here we have a voicemail that's left behind by the owner of the Fickle Peach after not picking up the phone, according to the story. Or they have messages on Facebook with all kind of information that may or may not be true. And obviously the point of this is it's a lot of misinformation, and they have to figure out what's true or not. Charlie? It will go on for a little bit. Get information from the press release for the police. Many of my students, it's actually the first class they take in college, so I just get them early with this. And they have a few more slides, and they're off writing the story for a few more minutes. So when they're done, or they think they're done, I'm asking some questions. So what happened? And people will tell the story. This is what I think happened, and get 2, 3, 4 other people talking about what they have written down. And this is sort of the summary. So there's a group that thinks only one person got injured. Another group thought there was a dead person. Another group is there's multiple victims out there. And as you know, in journalism, usually only one story is right and everything is wrong. So everyone was looking in the room like, hey, how did this happen? So then I asked them to describe the suspect. And I'll focus on gender now, because 50% thinks it's a male, and 50% thinks it's a female. Big problem, obviously. So how did it get to the female? Because it was a man that got stabbed. Now, they have the Facebook message that you saw earlier, woman arrested. And indeed, a woman was arrested, but also there's also a guy being led off to the police car. Nothing tells us that this has anything to do with the stabbing in the restaurant we're talking about. It's not like there's nothing going on well, there's not a lot of going on in Muncie. But there could be 2 events at the same time, and my colleagues left a lot of this, by the way. So perhaps it was the Facebook message that tricked them up. Or, can we get this going? Yes. Or perhaps it was the press release by the police that said that the suspect's name was Pat Johnson. And Pat could be male or female. So this is sort of the idea that I want to get across, is that you need to check this kind of things. Especially with the next slide. And let's see if this works. Yes. So then I asked, where did this happen? They're like, well, it's 125 East Charles Street. And I'm like, okay. Now, what I wanted to hear is 117 East Charles Street, because that just happens to be the location of the Fickle Beach. They just didn't check it out. So it turns out that, Charlie, let's not eat that. It turns out that 125 East Charles Street is 2 Johnnies. And what I tell my students is that Johnny and Johnny are not happy with their address in the story about a stabbing at the Fickle Beach. So there's my next question. So I'm asking, like, is there anything about the ambulance that you talked about? Many students, no, was sort of detail, didn't get to it. Others were like, yes, the ambulance was 20 minutes late. And I was like, oh, how did you know? Well, the tweet, obviously. And here's that tweet. And I'm asking, so where do you point out that this has anything to do with the story that we're talking about? Again, Muncie, we have a big hospital. There are multiple ambulances going on any single time. So they're getting the point slightly that they should be able to check some information before they go around. Then I asked them about a stalker. And some people know, but yes, and obviously it's a college student audience, so they have love triangles. At least the eyewitnesses always come up. And I've done this like 20 times at like 6 different universities, and for some reason it's always a love triangle. And I was like, okay, so how did you know? Well, the eyewitness said that. What else? Well, there's this tweet. It's talking about a stalker, totally different kind of stalker than we think about. True story, by the way. Look this up. You can just Google that headline, true story. Or they get another tweet. And you see like the top part is sort of missing, and that's because it's the last slide of the presentation. So you only see like the lower part. And again, it's talking about a stalker, yet it has nothing to do with this case. Charlie, slow down. Good boy. So what did we learn? At least that's what I'm asking my students. And this is more or less the memory of the summary of it. So eyewitnesses are really bad at being an eyewitness. So that's an important thing to know for any reporter out there. Don't believe everything on the internet. And that is sort of like my students are just like, what? You can't? Oh. And also your own brain may fool you. So like when I come up with the ambulance examples, it is really your idea linking this to another situation that leads you to provide misinformation. And I use this as a talking point or like media literacy, information literacy. But I also use those examples throughout the law class because a bunch of students committed libel. So I come back later on the semester talking about libel and how you the hot news doctrine, those kind of things. So that's all I have. Thank you. Good job.